이 앞에 영상을 보고 이렇게 들으니까 확실히 되게 느낌이 다르다. 되게 감동적인 것 같아. 진짜 너무 감동적이에요. 그러니까 진짜 오세요? 안녕하세요. 저는 오늘 첫 촬영을 한 딤플의 예빈.
안녕하세요. 저는 딤플의 성욱입니다. 반갑습니다. 네.
아, 네. 동해물과 왜 내가 낮은 거고 왜 너? 동해물과 백두산이 마르고 닳도록. 그러니까 국뽕이 차오르는.
그렇죠. 뭔가 느껴지는 거.
맞아요.
다른 나라 국가?
다른 나라 국가 들어본 건 많아요. 근데 진짜 신기해요. 막 진짜 완전 활기차고
맞아.
이게 애국가라고? 약간 이런 거 많았어요.
월드컵 같은 때 보면 이제 상대팀 애국가도 같이 나오잖아요.
맞아요.
들어보면 우리나라랑 느낌이 다른 게 좀 많더라고요.
진짜 신나는 거 많던데. 미국 사람들도 똑같지 않을까요? 자부심 느끼고 강국이잖아요. 세계 강국. 더 이렇게 차오를 것 같은데.
한국 사람들보다 더 클 것 같아요.
맞아요. 그러니까 우리가 1위다, 세계 1위다. 약간 이런 느낌도 있을 것 같아요. 네.
궁금해요. 잘 모르지만
미국도 진짜 국기 되게 예쁜 것 같아요. 별들 저 어떻게 그리지 근데?
근데 별이 많아가지고 한국처럼 막 태극기 그리기 이런 건 아니겠다.
There was a lawyer once. His name was Francis Scott Key. He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it. It's in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the national anthem.
변호사라고
It
하지
is
않았어요?
our song as an American.
작곡을 하셨네.
But we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story.
맞죠.
Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. Colonies were engaged in vicious conflict. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day, in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials, and they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity. Men.
저기서 다 사람이에요?
And he said, man,
동물처럼
I've got
가버렸어.
news for you tonight. You're free. He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your
정말
chains.
얼마나 깊었을까.
진짜.
As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that? He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. You could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war is over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. That's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort. They said, don't worry about it. He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? We have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule. Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen.
그림 너무 슬퍼.
And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds. The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch. As twilight began to fall and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset, suddenly the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, tell us where the flag is. Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us. 3 hours into the shell explode, and it would be close to the flag. They could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, it's still up. It's not down.
진짜 계속 저 사람들을 걱정하는구나.
The admiral came and he said, your people are insane. He said, don't they understand this is an impossible situation? Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees. The admiral said, we have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down. He said, we don't understand something, that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that. But he said, now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point. All that he could hear was the men down below praying.
진짜 국기가 되게 소중한 그
마지막 희망.
Prayer. God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it. Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist
밤새
hanging over
계속
the land, but
전쟁이
the rampart was tall
나오는구나.
enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds.
어떻게 저러지 근데?
Flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he'd found had happened was that flagpole and that flag had
진짜
suffered
기도가 통했다고
repetitious
생각이 들
direct
수밖에
hits.
없겠다.
But men, fathers, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up.
진짜 사람들이 국기를 위해서 목숨까지
Until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies.
진짜 목숨보다 소중한
And the song,
그게 그냥 예쁘다라고만
Say,
생각을
can you
했는데 저런
see
배경을 듣고
by the
나니까 되게
dawn's early light
먹먹해지네.
what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam?
어떻게 밤새 그렇게 지키려면 진짜
For the
너무
rocket's
그게
red glare, the
힘들 텐데.
bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night.
아
Still
이게
there.
국가의 가사예요.
Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly?
스캇이라는 분이 실화를 바탕으로 이렇게 쓰신 거네요, 가사를.
아, 자신이 진짜 직접 보고
그렇군요.
느낀
네.
거를
The price, it was paid.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight
우리가 계속 잡고 있었던
whose broad stripes
이 앞에 영상을 보고 이렇게 들으니까 확실히 되게 느낌이 다르다.
네.
그냥 봤을 때는 그냥 노래 좋다 이랬는데 되게 감동적인 것 같아. 근데 저희도 이걸 보면 진짜 되게 감동적이잖아요. 근데 진짜 미국인들이 보면은
그렇죠. 진짜
bombs bursting in through the night.
그쵸. 근데 진짜 앞에 저런 배경들을 모르고 들으면 그냥 잔잔하게 흘러간다 하는 게 어떤 상황이 있었는지 어떻게 해서 저런 가사들이 붙었는지를 알고 들으니까 확실히 좀 다르네요, 느껴지는 것들이.
그래서 막 이런 거 국가 들으면서 우시는 분들 되게 많잖아요. 되게 이해 못했는데 이런 걸 직접 보고 나서는 이렇게 감정이 생길 것 같아요, 진짜.
그렇죠, 그렇죠.
And the home of the brave.
아까 막 죽어가면서도 깃발 이렇게 들고 있는 거 그거 너무 슬퍼요. 진짜 너무 감동적이에요. 그러니까 제 나라가 아닌데도 보면서 감정이입돼서 엄청 슬펐어요.
네, 좀 눈물이
진짜세요? 실제?
어떤 나라든 이제 힘든 상황은 있을 거라고 생각을 하고 한국도 나라를 지키기 위해서 애쓰셨던 분들이 있기 때문에 이제 그 나라들이 존재를 한다고 생각을 하는데
나라랑 국기를 이렇게 지키기 위해서 진짜 몇천 명, 수만 명이 죽었잖아요. 그런 거 보면 이렇게 우리가 그분들의 노력 때문에 지금 여기 이렇게 잘 살아 있는 거니까 그런 걸 생각하면서 더 나라에 감사한 마음을 가지고 살아야겠다고 다시 한번 느꼈어요. 네, 저희가 오늘은 미국의 국가 배경과 역사를 봤는데요. 감동적이었고 보면서도 우리가 이렇게 안전하게 살아가는 건 다 이렇게 전에 이런 분들이 희생이 있기 때문에라고 많이 생각을 하게 되는 영상이었어요. 오늘도 저희의 영상이 좋았다면 좋아요와 구독과 알림 설정과 댓글 남겨주세요. 감사합니다. 안녕.